Okay, zurück ins Gericht. Haben wir noch ein bisschen Zeit. »8. Januar, 9:15. Good morning, Mr. Wright. Good morning, Maggie. So, what do you think is going to happen today, sir? Yesterday's session didn't go so well and ended on a giant mystery. That's true, and we still haven't solved a single part of it yet. Are you okay, Nick? Huh? Yeah, of course. I saw that little flash of doubt in your eyes. No, that wasn't doubt. That was, determination. Why don't I believe you? It's nearly time, Maggie. You'd better get going to the defendant's seat. Roger, don't let me down, Mr. Wright. I'm counting on you. Yep.
Hey, pal.
Oh, lebt noch. Hey, Detective Gumshoe.
Quit stressing Maggie out. She doesn't need that.
How did you know she was stressed?
I was watching through the doorway.
Oh,
You look like you lost the case already. Show a bit of confidence, will you, pal? Here, maybe this'll help.
huh? You taken up aromatherapy too?
Not in a million years, pal. Don't tell me that you don't remember this thing.
Come to think of it, that doesn't look like one of those aromatherapy bottles.
This is the small bottle that turned up in Trebian's kitchen a couple of days ago.
Wow, look at all these little bottles. Oh, aromatherapy oils. He's got so many, they're overflowing onto the floor. Hey, wait a minute. There's one bottle that's different from all the others. Well, what do you know? And it doesn't have a label either. It doesn't smell.
We finally got the analysis results back from the lab.
So, what is it? Is it the poison?
I'm afraid not, pal. It's medication.
Medication?
Yep, for ears. Topical use only, apparently.
For ears? You mean...
Yep, it's the medication Glenn Elk was using for his ruptured eardrum.
What was Glenn Elk's ear medicine doing in the kitchen? What about the unidentified fingerprints? Anything on that?
Someone screwed up, so they only had time to analyze the contents of the bottle. Another hour and they might have gotten something on the prints, but...
That's going to weaken its impact as a piece of evidence.
Okay, pal, this is it. Make sure your defense is impregnable today, got it?
Today's trial, I'm gonna expose that guy for what he's done, or my name isn't Phoenix Wright. Na gut, wollen wir mal schauen, wie gut das diesmal läuft.
Court is now in session for the trial of Maggie Bird.
Ich mache meistens so bis circa 11. Mal gucken. Vielleicht auch 10:30 oder 11:15 heute. Wenn ich noch was essen will. Mal gucken. Schau mal, wann der nächste gute Punkt kommt. Aber so mindestens eine halbe Stunde wollte ich noch machen. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Ready and waiting as always, Your Honor. Na, also den Fall werden wir heute auf jeden Fall auch nicht mehr abschließen, denke ich.
Very good, then we'll get underway at once. Yesterday we heard the testimony of Mr. Victor Kudo. He claims to have witnessed the defendant putting a powder into the victim's coffee. However, the witness's testimony was plagued with a number of problems.
The mark on the rim of the cup shows that the victim drank from it with his right hand. But according to the old man's testimony, he picked it up with his left hand.
Thank you, Mr. Godot. Furthermore, according to the witness's account, the victim was listening to the radio with an earpiece in his left ear. Yet the victim's left eardrum was ruptured, which made him effectively deaf in that ear.
It's amazing how many contradictions a single case can have, Nick. Also ich gehe zumindest mal davon aus, wenn der Fall davor irgendeine Indication dafür war, dass das hier jetzt auch nochmal etwas länger dauert. Allow me to enlighten you, Your Honor. The world you see keeps turning, and we must turn with it.
You've lost me already, Mr. Godot.
Don't let the mysteries of yesterday mystify you today. Only losers think like that. You've got to change with the times. That's one of my rules.
Are you implying that you've resolved these contradictions?
You know the answers to these riddles. The old guy wasn't just throwing seed in here, he was throwing us off the sand. And today I'll prove it.
Very well. Let the first witness take the stand.
Okay, yeah. And you are... Horazie. Oh, bonjour everyone. I am Jean Armstrong, the owner and head chef of La Très Bien restaurant.
Forgive me for asking, witness, but are you a woman?
Oh la la, monsieur. As you can see, I am la pert and perky gentleman, no? On the day of the incident, you were in Très Bien's kitchen. Isn't that right? With you, monsieur. Ja, er kann sich wohl auch nicht entscheiden, der Mr. Armstrong. Everything feels right. Huh. Wow, he's totally unfazed. Doesn't anything intimidate this guy? Genau, against gender fluid.
Very well, your testimony, please, witness. Please tell the court what happened that day at Très Bien.
Oui, volontiers. When it all happened, there were just 2 customers in my restaurant. I remember I was experimenting with some new art deco that day, like having a large mirror between the tables, for example. Perhaps that is what the old man was looking at. La cup, la earpiece, and la glasses. He would have seen everything in reverse, no? Huh. Mirror? Oui, un grand mirror. The most enormous mirror. And suddenly the mystery disappears. Like I said, the world keeps turning, so roll with it.
That would explain the coffee cup and the earpiece conundrum. The mirror would have made everything appear back to front.
What the heck? It's way too early in the morning for this to be happening to me.
Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
When it all happened, there were just 2 customers in my restaurant, okay. And who were the 2 customers exactly? Man, of course. La young man who died. And la other not so young man.
You're referring to yesterday's witness, I presume.
What about the other man Maggie says she saw at the table? Something tells me Mr. Armstrong isn't planning to disclose his existence. We need some hard evidence first before we can bring him up, don't we? I guess I'll just have to try a different approach for the time being. I remember I was experimenting with some new art decor that day. Nah, Mr. Furio Tiger. You were experimenting with art deco. How come I never heard about that before today? You are not familiar with the language of interior design, monsieur. Now, please stay on topic. Now, why didn't you tell the court about this before? But I did, just a few moments ago.
Excuse me, Mr. Armstrong. This deco you mentioned, are you referring to some sort of decorature?
No. Art deco. It is a style of design, Your Honor. He's talking about interior design, walls, ceilings, carpets, that kind of thing.
Oh, yes, of course. That deco.
I was trying to achieve a more la effeminate look for my restaurant. I was blending the most bold remodeling of la decor. Like having a large mirror between the tables, for example. How big of a mirror are we talking about here? Boof, something about 4 meters wide and, about 2 meters high. Let's see, if 1 meter is about 1 year. Holy glass in a frame, that's huge. I was intending to install it on the ceiling eventually. The ceiling? Was there a mirror on the ceiling? I don't remember. Man, no, but I decided not to go through with it in the end. What should I do? Should I ask him more about the mirror or not? Warum nicht? If you really had such a large mirror in the restaurant, someone would have noticed it. But there's nothing about a mirror in Mr. Kudo or Maggie Bird's testimonies. But...
Objection!
You didn't ask, Tried. You have only yourself to blame for such sloppy work. What? A mirror was delivered to Très Bien the day before the incident. Really? As Mr. Armstrong testified, he was carrying out some design changes, and as it turned out, he didn't actually use the mirror in the end. This just doesn't add up. Even if a mirror was delivered to Très Bien, it doesn't prove that it was in the restaurant on the day of the crime. If you want to doubt someone, try it. Look in the mirror. I'm sure the person looking back at you will be dubious enough.
So the witness yesterday had seen the victim reflected in a mirror.
Oui, perhaps that is what the old man was looking at. Normally, I'd expect people to know the difference between a reflection and a real object. Normally? How does normality come into this? That's lame, tried, even for you. Huh? Are you trying to say that if something isn't normal, it isn't possible? Is that it? Where does that leave the porky-headed lawyer and the top-notch chick over there? And the ungodly cool guy with the mask over here? Well tried. Not the hair. I don't want to have a top knot.
Mr. Godot is correct. The lack of normality is no basis for discounting an argument.
Bien, logic as one la day. La cup, la earpiece, and la glasses. You would have seen everything in reverse, no? Aber hier steht doch, dass er das über das linke Auge immer getragen hat. Oder? Wore an HMD over left eye. Das klingt so danach, als ob der das immer gemacht hat und es nie am anderen hatte. The coffee cup, the earpiece, and the HMD. Let's think back over Mr. Cooter's testimony for a second, shall we? The boy was wearing the earpiece on the same side as the green lens of his specs. No question, you can lock me up if I'm wrong. It was his left ear, without a doubt. So to summarize, we were told both the HMD and the earpiece were on the victim's left side. Now, if Mr. Cooter saw all that as a reflection in a mirror, it means both the HMD and the earpiece were actually on the victim's right side. Exactement, you see, monsieur. Now that you think about it, it is not so odd, no? Unfortunately, that's where we run into a monumental contradiction with the facts. If Mr. Cooter really did see everything in a mirror, why is it that the HMD is now on the wrong side of his head? Ich meine, das wird ja wohl so ein Ding sein, das nur auf einer Seite passt. Das ist ja wie mit Kopfhörern, wenn du welche für links und rechts hast, haben die so eine leicht unterschiedliche Form. Also ich glaube nicht, dass das so ein HMD-Ding war, das er auf beiden Seiten tragen konnte. Zumindest glaube ich, dass das hier das Argument ist.
Order, Mr. Wright is correct. If the witness genuinely observed the victim reflected in a mirror, then we would expect the victim's eyepiece to have been over his right eye.
Objection!
How bitter. Try it. You should have a taste of this bitterness. It'll calm me down in no time. Are we talking about your coffee or something completely different? You don't understand the way the witness thinks.
How he thinks?
You remember this, I presume. The I broke the vase, sorry, apology, Mr. Cooter's sworn testimony. Exactly, the old man has one very grievous habit, other than throwing seeds. The more of an impression something makes, the more muddled his mind makes it. And what's the most striking thing about Mr. Elg?
Clearly it's the victim's eyepiece.
And that's my point. The old man strikes again. Mr. Elg's HMD made a big impression on the old man. I saw the earpiece and those newfangled spectacles he was wearing. Oh yes, they were both on his left ear. Do you hear? His left ear. Huh. Well tried. That's the worst but best impression of Kudo ever. Wow, I really thought he was old seedy for a minute there. Godot is good. Hätte ich wahrscheinlich dann in der Stimme sprechen sollen.
Enough. I must agree that yesterday's witness wasn't responsibly rash in much of his testimony.
Bad luck, Nick. Looks like the boil of a contradiction you found is just a rash.
A mirror can't be beaten by a handful of seeds, nor can it lie. So, what exactly was the old man looking at? Fill us in, Mr. Armstrong. Go on, tell the court. We're all ears.
Oui, I can explain. Please, if you will look at la plans of la restaurant. Okay. Alors, is everyone sitting comfortably? La mirror, it was in the middle of la restaurant, dividing the two halves. Oh god, okay. There is only one seat from which you could have seen an image of la victim. That was la seat at the table next to la victims. That was where la old man was sitting. After the terrible incident occurred, I moved the mirror so it was not in the way. But naturally, I did not touch anything else.
I see no problems with the explanation we have just heard. From the table next to the victims, Mr. Kuda could have seen the victim in the mirror.
What a naughty little coquette I am, confusing all the men like this.
Don't worry about it. We can keep up except for the guy breaking out in a cold sweat over there again. Ugh, I hate that guy. You said you didn't touch anything else apart from the mirror. Are you quite sure about that?
Volontiers, of course.
Very well, Mr. Wright. You cross-examination, if you please.
Okay. The mirror was in the middle of the restaurant, dividing the two halves. So, run this by me again. The mirror was here, correct?
Oui.
Really? Because I know if I were you, I wouldn't have put a mirror there. It would be in the way.
Objection!
Look who's talking, Tried.
Huh?
You're obstructing my view, among other things.
But this is my seat in the courtroom.
Très bien's charm is that it gives you the impression that you're the only customer. Temporarily placing a mirror in that spot would hardly be in the way. Unlike you, Tried.
I tell you, monsieur, la mirror was there in the middle of la restaurant. There is only one seat from which you could have seen an image of la victim.
And where would that be?
Ooh la la, look how you lean towards me. I always attract the younger boys. Maybe I should keep you in suspense a little longer.
Mr. Armstrong, tell the court what you know at once.
I attract the older ones too, you know. Handsome. Shall I tease you too?
I'm already seeing a very hot someone, so I'm afraid you'll be waiting for a long time.
Huh. Sein Kaffee. I bet she has mocha cream skin and cappuccino perfume. Yeah, I will tell you. There was only one seat from which you could have seen. That was la seat at the table next to la victims. That was where la old man was sitting.
So why can you only see the victim from that particular seat?
Monsieur, it is obvious, no? If you look at la plans, you will understand.
Ja gut, das hatten wir uns ja gerade gezeigt. Ja, ich meine, wenn du jetzt bei dem Tisch unten rechts an einem rechten Stuhl sitzen würdest, könntest du ja auch nach oben gucken und würdest auch das Opfer sehen. Ja, also stimmt nicht so ganz.
The victim would have been reflected in the mirror like so. If you were sitting at the table next to him, you would see everything, no? So that's the seat old Celie was sitting in on that day, when the poisoning happened. The old man was sitting at the table next to the victim. Why does that seem kinda odd? Ich hätte jetzt eher gesagt, dass der hier hier unten rechts saß. Mein Mauszeiger taucht bei euch ja gar nicht auf. An dem Tisch unten rechts saß und kein Spiegel da war. Das halte ich im Moment eher für irgendeine Art von Notlüge. Weil sich dann halt auch erklärt, dass er gesehen hat, dass das links war. Moment mal. Der hat ja erzählt, dass er die Vase kaputt gemacht hat, ne? Das heißt, wenn an dem Tisch oben links keine kaputte Vase ist, müssten wir damit doch beweisen können, dass er da oben links nicht gesessen hat. Und dieses Foto, das wir haben, zeigt nämlich nur den Tisch in der Mitte, den Tisch oben rechts und den Tisch oben links. Hahaha. Aber, wo präsentiere ich das jetzt? Ja, the mirror was in the middle there. One seat from which you could have seen an image of the victim was the seat where the old man was sitting. Das könnte es doch sein, weil er behauptet hier, dass der Victor oben links gesessen hat. Ja? Und Victor hat gesagt, er hat die Vase kaputt gemacht. Und hier haben wir ein Foto, wo man den Tisch oben links sieht. Und das ist keine Vase, die kaputt ist. Speichern ist eigentlich eine gute Idee. Auch wenn ich im Moment noch jede Menge Energie habe, aber man kann ja nie sicher vorsichtig genug sein. So, ja, was präsentiere ich denn dann? Wahrscheinlich das da. Ja. Your Honor, Mr. Kudo's words yesterday strongly contradict Mr. Armstrong's testimony.
This is the letter of apology that was written by Mr. Kudo, is it not?
I realize it looks useless, Your Honor, but this is still testimony. I guess useless people are only really good at identifying useless things.
What relevance did this scrap of paper have to the trial, Mr. Wright?
Mr. Kudo's testimony is actually very relevant to the question at hand, Your Honor, because it very clearly contradicts with this piece of evidence. Das Foto wahrscheinlich. Da. This piece of evidence contradicts with the testimony we have heard, Your Honor.
The crime photo?
Yes, this photo clearly shows something that theoretically should not exist.
What on earth do you mean by that, Mr. Wright?
Should not exist. Sounds like you're describing yourself, Tried. Well, fuck you too.
Now then, if the defense will please clarify its statement. What is the something that should not exist in this photo?
Natürlich Glenn Elk. Nein, die Vase. There's one thing that was clearly demonstrated by yesterday's testimony. Mr. Kudo broke the vase that was on the table where he was sitting. At the table where he was sitting. And yet, as the court can see, there's an unbroken vase on the table next to the victim. Why? Because Mr. Kudo was not in fact sitting at the table next to the victim at all.
Objection.
Don't be an idiot, Tried. That's impossible. That seat is the only one Kudo could have seen the victim's reflection from. Exactly. There's only one conclusion we can draw from this contradiction. There was no mirror. There was no mirror in Très Bien that day. Your testimony, Mr. Armstrong, is an elaborate lie. Mon Dieu!
Objection.
Don't try to confuse the court, right? Obviously, the witness cleaned up the vase while the police were taking the time getting to the crime scene. Unfortunately, Mr. Godot, that doesn't quite work for me. Mr. Armstrong already testified to the contrary. In his own words, I did not... hat er sich selber in die Scheiße geritten. Das habe ich schon gerade wieder aus meinem Gedächtnis irgendwie gestrichen. Ich habe mich nämlich gerade selber schon dieselbe Sache gefragt. Ich habe auch gerade gedacht, ja, kann er das nicht einfach hinterher eine neue Vase hingestellt haben? Aber er hat ja selber gerade genau das gesagt.
Well, witness, what do you have to say for yourself?
I was right. There was no mirror in the restaurant that day.
In light of this revelation, we return back to the original problem. Why did the victim have an earpiece in an ear in which he couldn't hear?
You only get one shot in life. There's no turning back. If you want to claim that the mirror wasn't there, try it. Then this problem is all yours. How do you explain what the old man saw? If I can answer this, then I'll be that much closer to the truth. I can feel it. Are you going to be okay? Can you really solve this contradiction, Nick? There's more than just this one contradiction, Maya. What do you mean? Remember what Maggie told us? There was another man at the victim's table, and there was a sample CD on the victim's table. It all flies in the face of Mr. Kudo's testimony. And I think I know the reason why nothing in this case is adding up. Echt? Und das wäre?
Well, Mr. Wright, let's hear your answer.
Yes, Your Honor.